We need to put some holdo maneuvers.
Welcome to the Holdo Maneuver podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Mike. We're two hardworking dads trying to immerse ourselves into Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
If this is your first time listening and or watching, in this sometimes short-form Star Wars podcast, we'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away. So join us as we prepare to execute the Holdo Maneuver. All right,
you gotta go to Arizona, don't you?
Yeah.
All right.
Walk of shame complete.
Yes. So here we go. Okay.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Very good. That's the best way. So guys, I
It
have
is the way.
Yeah. So I have a joke I want to tell you guys. What do you call a Jedi in denial?
Egyptian.
Nope, but that's equally as good of a dad joke. But Obi-Wan cannot be.
Nice.
There we go. So, yes. This week we are back for episode 49 of the Holdo Maneuver. And we have with us today our guest, Kai Patterson.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Again.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll be saying that a lot this episode until we get to the end, and then we'll say goodbye there.
Goodbye.
But yeah, so I guess starting off, what? So
explain who he is.
Yes,
I mean,
yes. So you edited together about 2.5 hour version of the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series, taken down from the 6-part limited series event, and you did that within like the past year or so. So from that, I guess getting straight into it, what initially inspired you to want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, obviously. I think that's very apparent. And I was very, very excited when they announced the Obi-Wan show. I love Ewan McGregor. I think he's an incredible actor, not just as Obi-Wan, but just in general. I love the stuff that he works on. And he's always been, one of my favorites in Star Wars. And so I just couldn't not wait to see Ewan McGregor back in the role. And I thought it was like a good time period to explore, because it's that sweet spot between the prequels and the originals. And I know we have Rebels and stuff, but we hadn't seen really live action stuff handling this moment in time. So I was just super excited for Obi-Wan and the potential for him to see Vader, because I was like, that I feel like that goes against canon, but maybe they can figure out some way to make it work. So I was just so excited, and as I would watch each episode, I started to be a little critical, and I was like, because I'm a filmmaker as well, and so story and editing and all that just was really important to me. And I was watching it, just not loving each episode, and seeing that there was some great stuff, but there was also just some stuff that was really off. And a lot of it I was like, it's a lot it's mostly cosmetic. I feel like it wasn't, there were a few instances in the story in my film version that I've changed the story, but for the most part, I've kept the skeleton of the story. And because of that, I felt like I was just so frustrated watching it. I was like, there is stuff here that I really enjoy, but it's thrown in together with all this other stuff that I wasn't excited about and wasn't loving, and things that just really frustrated me. And so I had watched stuff like The Last Jedi that was re-edited by Ivan Ortega. I don't know if you guys know that re-edit.
Right.
But when The Last Jedi came out, he had like totally, reworked a lot of what I didn't love about that. And, being an editor myself, I also knew how powerful editing could be. And so I was like, I just want to see what happens if I start taking out some of the stuff that I felt was unnecessary or just kind of filler to the story. I didn't actually set out to make a movie, but I just was like, I just want to see what happens when I cut all this stuff out. And then by the time I was done, I was like, oh, it's around 2.5 hours. So I guess I did make a movie. And then from there, that's when I was like, okay, this is going to be a movie, and it has the structure for it. And I did it in like a weekend. I did the full like first draft, not including any of the visual effects that I added. And then over the next, I think, 3 weeks, I finished out the visual effects and just kind of, made sure it was exactly how I wanted it, because I knew that I would be asking people if they would want to see it, and I would be sharing it with people. I didn't know just how many people I'd be sharing it with, but I knew that I wanted to share it, so it had to be polished.
Right.
Nice.
No,
Good, Mike.
watching it, I need to rewatch the series because I forget the episode. Like I for one loved the series. But I know that had its flaws and it has its downside, but for me, the series was everything I wanted it to be and a little more as a fan for me. But from any filmmaking storytelling perspective, there was a lot of fat that could be trimmed. It's true with any movie, any like. For the most part, there's stuff that can be cut out, and I thought you did a great job with it, and I liked how you paced it and how you put it together. It was a fun watch because I wanted to rewatch the series anyway, and watching your cut like helped me do that in about an hour 20 less than what I would have watched every episode. But it was I thoroughly enjoyed what you did, so kudos. It was very cool, very well done in my opinion. So
Thank you. Yeah, I think also the fun part is just like becoming reacquainted with old stuff. Like you obviously watch the show and then you want to rewatch it, but the time commitment, and then when you watch it in a different way, there's always something new you can find from it, And I've probably watched my own movie and the series more times than a lot of people just because of having to edit it.
Right.
But like there were definitely times when like I would be editing something and being like, oh, this is definitely fat that I can trim.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be like somewhere along later in the edit and I'd be like, oh, they for sure mentioned this earlier on. And either I have to cut it out of here too, or I have to add it back later. And so it was also an eye-opening experience for me too, where like, I could see just how much work they put into, the details of the show. Because, I don't deny that like people working on this are amazing artists and, they're doing the best that they can. And I think really the things that I had issues with are things that were beyond the control of the artists. I can see Disney being like, we need it to be 6 episodes, not 4, or we need it to be a show, not a movie. We need these things elongated, and like coming from the studio telling these artists that their art needs to change, I think is probably where I see that I had a lot of privilege in being just a one-man show. Basically, I could do whatever I wanted with this story without a studio telling me I couldn't. So obviously I had more privilege than the actual artists that were working on it, other than not having access to the full footage, to completely remake the show into a movie. That would have been awesome. It would have been a lot more work, but it would have been cool to go through all the takes of every scene and see if there were other things I could have done with the story.
Yeah, one of the other things you kind of brought it up is I was going to ask, like, how many times do you think that you with editing of this, how many times do you think you watched through the series proper on Disney Plus as you were like compiling and putting this together?
Definitely, like my movie finished, I've watched probably 7 or 8 times, and then like editing it, because I've probably watched each section that I was editing like 30 times. It's probably somewhere around 40 times.
Wow. And like kind of with that too, you can tell what stuff I guess was kind of like fat within like the story too, because when I was watching it, there's stuff that I didn't even realize that I had forgot or had been like cut from it. The only thing that had stood out to me being cut from it is pretty much like within your cut, Reva dies. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
When she gets the Qui-Gon treatment, she actually does die when she gets stabbed in the gut.
Yeah, and I just felt like it was better for her character to just, I mean, let's be real. I had a problem with the way it ended. I just felt like it just came too close to breaking canon with Luke, being chased by Reva, and also it just didn't make sense to me. Like I'm not a parent, and so maybe you guys can have better insight on this, but I'm, if I'm the godfather to Luke Skywalker and I know how important he is to the galaxy, and then an Inquisitor who is like an agent of the Empire who definitely knows Vader comes to attack your home, I say, there's so many other planets in this galaxy. I am not staying here. Why would I stay here after being attacked? Even if Reva didn't, do anything terrible at the end, she's still somebody that's alive and knows Luke Skywalker's location, and the Empire knows she's out there. So I was like, that it doesn't make sense to me, for canon to be correct that they would stay on Tatooine after an event like that, which is why I cut out any time the Inquisitors interacted with Owen or anything, which was unfortunate because the only parts really that Beru is in is towards the end, and I loved that they brought back both the actors who played Owen and Beru from Revenge of the Sith, and I was really sad that I couldn't include Beru. That was like the one thing I was just like so sad, and I like looked over the footage so many times to see could I put it in there in another context or something, and I just like couldn't figure out a way to do it without having to include the end bit with Reva.
Mike, do you have something that you wanted to take off from that?
I mean, when I watched it initially, the series, not your cut, I didn't want Reva to live. I did not. I don't think you ruined anything. I think it made it better having her disappear. I didn't think of it on the same level you did, for sure. Having that knowledge of Luke's whereabouts and all that makes her a liability in the canon and something easily exploitable, because I feel like Vader would know she didn't die. So and he's revenge driven. We know that. Unless we get an Obi-Wan season 2 and that's buttoned up then.
Right. That also takes care of like that one thing that a lot of people had issues with too, with like how open Bal was with like giving like the message of like, come to Tatooine where the boy is. And so like getting rid of that too, that's like kind of removes that whole issue a lot of people had with that part of it too. So we talked, I'm going to loop back around into your cut of the film too, but I wanted to loop back really quick into like kind of like your history, kind of like what got you into filmmaking to begin with, just as like a filmmaker in general, and then like how with your journey with being a filmmaker, how does that incorporate into like your love of Star Wars with that?
Yeah, I have been a filmmaker since I, was like 5 years old. I remember I watched Jurassic Park. My mom let me watch it at 5, and I was just enthralled. I was so like mesmerized by it that I actually was like, I am going to be a paleontologist. That's what I want to be.
Nice.
And then I started to realize as I was, digging around in the sand at recess, I was like, maybe what I loved about Jurassic Park was actually like the storytelling and how it can transport you to a world that feels so real, even though it's completely fabricated. And I just got really like into stories, and I just like I loved reading and writing and watching movies. And then my dad was in the news when I was growing up, so he I would visit the news studio and I get to see like behind the scenes of like people making content, and so I just have been around it for a long time. And my mom, she's an actress, and she was my drama teacher in high school too. And when we were kids, she was putting us in like magazines and commercials and stuff. And so I kind of started on the acting side too, and I got to see behind the scenes of films there. I was on Baywatch Hawaii when that was a thing. I was like 5 years old. I played like one of the main character's son, who like came back for one episode because it was a flashback, because he spoiler alert, he passed away, so he's like having visions of his son. I didn't even know how to read, but I had to memorize the script. And then I, later on I was on the show Lost.
Nice.
I did some parts there because I grew up in Hawaii, and all those shows were made in Hawaii. So yeah, I've just always been interested in the film industry and pursuing films and making my own films. I had plenty of like stop motion films with like my Legos and my Star Wars toys, which actually I have my little Obi-Wan here chilling with me. I'm sure he's been in plenty of my stop motion films. Yeah, and so it's been all. I mean, and obviously I have to talk about Star Wars because I saw that at a very, very young age. And I remember some of my earliest memories is me like in my aunt's house, because she was a huge Star Wars fan and Star Trek fan, but she like showed me all the originals, and I remember just being like, oh my god, like I loved Luke Skywalker. Like Luke was like my favorite Jedi, and then watching the prequels. And I think the first one that I was able to see in theaters was Attack of the Clones, because finally I was old enough to go see that. Because 99 I was like 3 or something. Yeah, so or 4. I was 4. But yeah, I mean, I loved Star Wars from the moment I watched the originals, and I knew it was going to be a big part of my life. And so I've always followed it. Like before Disney bought it, I was always reading all the Wikipedia pages, and I was like totally loving the expanded universe. And so people always called me a big Star Wars nerd. So I'm sure a lot of people that have seen now my Obi-Wan movie that know me in real life are not surprised that I did something like this.
Yeah,
Mark and I grew up in the dark times where there was no new Star Wars.
Well, partially, yeah, because we're roughly about 9 or so years, I think, older than you. So like the first one I got to see in theaters was the special edition of Empire Strikes Back, because when they did those in 1997. And then the first new Star Wars movie was Phantom Menace when that came out in 99. And then Mike and I worked at a movie theater when Revenge of the Sith came out. So like when that came out, we were both like projectionists at that point. So we like got the movie like 2 or 3 days before it came out. So we built it and like watched it like with I think it was like maybe you and I and like maybe 2 other people.
It was whoever would stay that late. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
That's
technically
amazing.
was part of our jobs because you had to build it
Technically.
and then play it through to make sure that it
Quality.
didn't have
Quality control.
Yeah.
that
That's funny.
that was a nice benefit of it. But that was one of the things I really liked about like what you incorporated into your edit too, was with how you incorporated some of the flashbacks from, so like you recontextualized the flashback that they did use in the show, and then started off the movie with that. So I really thought that was cool.
Mhm.
Like kind of recontextualizing that to like when Vader's in his basically his tank and on Mustafar, and then like cuts to like that kind of in between episode 2 and 3 era with them sparring. And then I liked how you did some of those like match cuts in there, like that were like some of the very similar like choreography moves. I thought that was really cool. I really liked that, which I wish in general like Star Wars would kind of like incorporate flashbacks as a thing a little bit more often, which they have done that a little bit more recently. And
Yeah, it was like Rise of Skywalker, I think, was like the first one really to do that.
Yeah, like that. And then I think Andor just used a few in that too. Well, yeah, like there's whole back sequences in that. But yeah, that was a choice that I liked that you did a lot with this too. So well done.
Yeah, I'll let you in on a little secret, a little fan edit secret. If you are going to do something like what I did, you have to start. This is my own philosophy. I mean, a lot of other people might not do this, but I wanted to start in a totally different than how the show started, because right away oh, this is different. Like,
right.
Oh, I'm in for something different, and it also encourages you to, keep watching, because it's like if you open up the show or the movie and the first 20 minutes is basically just the first episode, then you're like, oh, okay. Like
I'm just watching the episode but faster.
Yeah. And so it's always it's always good to, if you're gonna do something like this, like start off with something so new that people automatically know, okay, this is something new and I'm gonna have to like pay attention because the story is being told differently now. And so it was just to, one, it was a practical thing because I wanted to get the flashback out of that sequence of events later on, because we know that Reva turns on her lightsaber and tries to attack Vader, and that would be the reason that he would let the ship go instead of just like watching it go. And with all the flashbacks in the show, it was really nicely paced in the show, actually, with the flashbacks in that episode. I think that was episode 5, or was it 5?
Yeah,
I think it was 5 that did that with the flashbacks. And episode 5, I think, was one of my favorite episodes of the series. Obviously 6 with the big fight. We got to have that. But episode 5, I loved the pacing of it and the flashback sequences. And I had to gut most of that when I was moving all the flashbacks into the beginning, just because, I did want the story to flow from that point on, and I wanted it to be very linear. And so that was another reason why I wanted to put the flashbacks somewhere else. And then I had the idea of starting off with Vader, because everyone wants to see Vader, and it's a nice, like, I imagined marathoning, the prequels and then Obi-Wan and then watching the originals. So in my head, I was like, okay, I want this to really bridge that gap. And what did we just see? We just saw Anakin become Vader, and we just saw like him finally put on the suit for the first time and like being, assembled and cleaned up and everything. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to start this next movie with Vader healing in his back to tank and just like seeing this decrepit little thing that he is now while you see how tortured he is by his past and by his vengeful rage for Kenobi. And I thought that just like would set the perfect scene for who our villain is, what they want, and then move into, you know, our main story.
Nice. And kind of going off that too, and speaking of Reeve a little bit earlier, I liked how you also like recontextualized her flashbacks too, like within like that whole scene with her fighting Vader in that too, because I thought that was powerful, like kind of incorporating that in, like layered into like the two of them fighting, which I actually thought of using that there was made it more powerful than the way that it was used within the show too, just because it's like more like you can kind of feel more of like what her headspace is within that, because it's like going like that, and thought that was really well done. So again,
Thank you.
That was awesome. And so really quick before I forget about it too, is that I think also when you posted like the April Fool's Day kind of stuff with the film getting picked up by like Disney Plus and whatnot, which all the like the Photoshop on that was great. You like,
thank you.
If you didn't know it was Photoshop, which a lot of people didn't, because they thought like you were straight up telling us stuff. The only reason I noticed was because of like the lost Easter eggs that you like hid.
Yeah.
And then, which made me pointed out to our friend Ralph, who does a live action Star Wars podcast, and who's producing the Getting Lost documentary. So I had to point that out to him because I thought he would think that was funny too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, Lost is literally one of my favorite shows ever created. Like I mean, not only was I on the show a couple of times, but I also just loved it. So anytime I got to work on set, I was like, you know, I got to see like future things being filmed. So I'd be like, oh my God, okay, like this person's here. Like what flashback could this be for? And blah, blah, blah. So I love Lost. So I always try to put little Easter eggs into anything I do, with either the Lost numbers or like characters from Lost.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Were you an other, or were you
so well, sometimes I would do extra work just in the background. Sometimes I would do photo double work of actors they had sent back to California that I would fill in for. But I did my feet got featured in one of the episodes where Jin and Echo are looking through the bushes in season 2, and the others are walking by, and there's a little kid with a teddy bear, and those are my feet walking by and dragging the teddy bear through the mud. And yeah, that was a wild day of filming, but that was really fun. Yeah, so a couple different roles, but yeah, mostly extra work and photo double work.
Nice. Yeah, I like. Before we get back in Obi-Wan, with Lost is still my favorite show too. Like my first tattoo that I ever got was like the one that like Charlie has.
Oh yes.
So it's like even the same font, same spot, everything. But like our opening intro to the show is Dominic Monaghan from Rise of Skywalker. So we need to pull some holdo maneuvers. So needing to incorporate that in some way too. But that's awesome.
Wait, I totally forgot that I also, like, before the show was even a show yet, I was auditioning for the role of Walt, and I was like about to get it, and then they changed the castings of the dad, and of course then they went with Walt being black, and I am white, so I did not get the part, but I was like next in line for the part, which would have been totally changed my life.
Oh yeah,
but that was really cool.
Could have been tall ghost Walt.
Yeah.
So speaking of that too, is now I liked how, like, within that too, like how you kind of placed in Qui-Gon's like voice like a few more times throughout, like when Obi-Wan is reaching out to him. Now, was that like a tough choice too, actually removing removing?
Oh, well, I put Qui-Gon in the end credits scene. That scene from the where Qui-Gon is the Force ghost.
Okay.
I chose to put that at the end. I know Star Wars movies don't really ever, or they never have
It does work
post-credit
as a
scenes.
tag
So
scene, though.
so that was just kind of, I know that's almost sacrilegious for a Star Wars movie, so
Right.
I'm sorry for people, but I just felt like ending on the hello there for a movie called Obi-Wan. I just felt like that really encompassed the like denouement of the movie, and so I wanted that. But yeah, and I know nobody, because Star Wars never has post-credit scenes, nobody really stays to watch that. So there's plenty of people that always comment on my posts and stuff, and they're like, "Why did you remove the Qui-Gon scene?" I'm like, "It didn't remove it. It is still there. It's just in a different spot."
Right.
But on the adding in Qui-Gon's voice, that was just something that I honestly was expecting and was so confused that the original show didn't do that, because it's just such a simple thing. And I guess they were trying to, wait for that big reveal of Qui-Gon as a Force ghost at the end. But to me, it was still just a powerful moment for Obi-Wan really being in need and constantly reaching out. And I know there's some differing thoughts on this. I know people have told me like, "Oh, you didn't get it. Like, Obi-Wan he was reaching out for his master, and he had to realize that he had it within himself to, defeat Vader, even though he didn't defeat Vader."
Right.
And honestly, I don't think that my version takes away from that, because Qui-Gon is still reminding Obi-Wan, that he needs to trust in the Force. He doesn't give him any extra power. He doesn't say like, "Obi-Wan, I am your master, and I am putting my Force through you. You may now, destroy Vader because of my power." Kind of like how Rey got that little extra power boost from all the Jedi. Obi-Wan was really just being reminded by his master of what was important, and that was, caring for Luke and Leia, and that was his mission, and that's what he needed to focus on, and he needed to focus on the moment. And so that's why I added in that with Qui-Gon. I just felt like it would be a more powerful moment for him to reconnect for a moment with his master, and then feel that it would just be like if you're in need and all of a sudden your parent called you and they're just like, "Hey, you got this." It's still within yourself that you can do it, but it's a nice extra push.
No, I mean, it's fitting because if you think about episode 4, when he's doing the run to shoot the photon torpedoes there, Obi-Wan just pops in Luke's head and says, "Use the Force," like, or trust or whatever he says. So it fits with what's been done in the past. I didn't think it took anything away. So
yeah,
I appreciate that. And you guys can disagree with me, even though I'm face to face. You're welcome to disagree with me.
I wanted more of the mundane fish chopping that Obi-Wan did.
You're right. You know what? I'm going to make a cut just for you with just
2 hours of fish chopping.
Yeah.
And I thought, because that was one thing I did like in the series, was how they captured how mundane and ordinary he was trying to be through that montage of just painful fish chopping.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't needed in your cut, but it's just.
Well, and I think that's the great thing about having a show too, is you do have time to develop those things, which is why I was really excited to have a show. And I honestly thought that like the first 2 or 3 episodes of this show were going to be very slow. Like I thought the show was going to, take a bold step and really do a character study on Obi-Wan and his mental state. And I guess, of course, you can't do that with Star Wars. I don't think they're brave enough to do something that slow and that sad. And, so obviously I just had what I had to work with from the show. But if I was going to do my own version of the Obi-Wan show, I would have for sure made it more of a, you know, almost Lawrence of Arabia, like, you know, really spend time with him alone.
Right.
But that's just my opinion.
Where did you end up? The footage? Did you just rip that from Disney Plus, or can you
There
share
is
that?
this. I will share as much as I'm comfortable sharing. There is a site called Disp Cam, and it's like Disney Plus Cam, I guess. But you have to like log into your Disney Plus credentials, and then it will let you download the show for like offline, you know, viewing basically. But it caps it at 720p. So I did do my whole like edit in 720p, but upscaled to 1080p. And then once my edit went viral, once I shared it, there were a lot of people that were requesting a 4K version. And I was like, I don't know where to get 4K files. And a very nice fan sent me the 4K files for the show. So I don't know how they got it, but that's how I got it.
Was that fan named Lucas Camajord in any fashion?
No comment.
He's like, this is the footage you're looking for.
Yeah.
This is what I would have done.
Speaking with that too, like with like some of the like, so you kind of essentially did like the Patterson special edition cut too, because with adding kind of like some of like your own visual effects in there too, with like adding some of like the bantha like walking across like the dune season, like the dewbacks. What did you use to do that? And then like, because that is pretty seamless with like the actual like footage of the show too. So again, that like if I didn't know that hadn't been in the show itself, I wouldn't have realized that had been added into this.
Yeah. So there, I did a few different things for different moments. So for like the opening sequence with, you know, Mustafar, I created all that in Blender. You know, just all the different shading and the gas giant planet. I think it's called Justifad or something like that. Justifad, something like that. I think it's supposed to be a play on words on just a fad, but that's like that's the planet that Mustafar orbits, and that was in the back of the shot in Revenge of the Sith. So I wanted to kind of recreate that, but in 10 years later. So I didn't want to just reuse the shot from Revenge of the Sith. So I made that in Blender. I also made Vader's room and back to tank, and I like found somebody had done a I guess like a 3D figure that you could print out of Anakin as like what he looks like in the back to tank. But I repurposed that to just put it in as animation. So I like had to like paint, his skin and paint his clothes on him and stuff. And then, so that whole sequence is CG. And then I think it cuts pretty seamlessly with the footage from the show. And then the parts that you're talking about are actually from on Disney Plus. There's these things called
the biomes.
The biomes. Yeah. So I repurposed some of the biomes footage that they had for Tatooine
Nice.
for the Obi-Wan stuff. And I think maybe a point for Vader's castle as well. Yeah, in the beginning as well. Mm-hmm. And then other stuff I was doing just like visual effects comping in After Effects where I needed to like change the course of events, like Vader being stopped by Reva, and then cutting to when the ship leaves. When you see the ship leave, it's just Vader standing there watching it leave. So I had to like go find a shot from earlier in the show where Reva is in a stance that's similar to what I needed it to be, cut her out of that, and then put her behind Vader, and then added a little lightsaber and stuff. So it looked like she was behind him so that, it made sense that she turned on her lightsaber. He stopped it. We cut to a wide shot. She's behind him. We see the ship leave, and then now we cut back to a close-up shot of them interacting with each other. So just stuff like that. Oh, and also Benny Safdie's character, I had in my version decapitated.
Yeah,
and
I
I just
leaned
felt
over
like
my
that
son.
was, yeah, I felt like that was more menacing for Riva to just actually, and for the Inquisitors to show that they did something scary,
I leaned over
yeah.
my son. I was like, oh, "Wait, was his head cut off in the TV show?" And he's like, "No," and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Yeah, I
'Cause-
couldn't remember either. That's like I need to rewatch the show now to see if I can spot what's different, what's where, and all that.
Send it to
there's
New
a
Rockstar, see if they'll
ton.
do all the Easter eggs you missed in the Patterson
Oh
cut of
man,
Obi-Wan.
I would love if somebody could do that for me, because I've been like putting off filming a video where I go through every single thing that I changed, and I keep telling people I'm going to make it, and I haven't made it yet. And I was going to try to make it for like my 1-year anniversary of releasing my Obi-Wan movie, but that was like 20 days ago. So
It's already been a year. Jeez.
Happy
yeah, I
belated
know.
anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, but if somebody else would do that for me, I have seen some videos where people like go through and they're like, these were the biggest changes that he made, and sometimes I like to watch those because I'm like, well, this is weird, like people talking about me.
And you're just like, I didn't change that. You're
Sometimes there are those, like when Obi-Wan is having the dream sequence where he's like, there's all those prequel flashbacks of him like with Anakin, and Yoda's like, talking to him and stuff. That is in the actual show, and many people attribute that to my edit, and I'm like, I didn't do that. That was in the show. They had those prequel flashbacks in that specific moment. I don't think I really edited any of that flashback sequence that he's dreaming of. So but there are some times where people like say that I changed stuff even though I didn't, or they'll say that like my edit like didn't work in a certain spot, and then I'm like, well, actually that edit is from the show, like but that's fine.
Now, were there any scenes or anything that you were adamant about keeping or cutting, or
I knew for sure that I was going to be cutting Riva on Tatooine, like the end sequence, which we've talked about. And I knew that the end part with Vader and Obi-Wan talking to each other with the unmasked portion, I knew I wasn't really going to touch that, other than adding in Qui-Gon's voice to tell him why he should leave him left alive one more time.
right?
But other than that, like I thought the writing was great for that sequence. I thought it was beautifully shot. The shaky cam is a little, like, I didn't love that, but I still like just that moment between them. It was great to have those actors back again 10 years later doing the role again, and really showing the emotion that I felt was necessary for that moment in the story. So I knew that was going in almost untouched. And I knew also that I was never going to include the first time that Obi-Wan and Vader encounter each other, which is when like Obi-Wan comes out of nowhere, and then Vader is standing there, and then he turns on his lightsaber, and then Obi-Wan just like runs away. I like hated that so much. So I was like, that is the first to go. And I think it was way scarier in my edit where like he's running, he knows that like Vader's probably pursuing him, and then all of a sudden the first thing he hears is, "You cannot run, Obi-Wan," and he turns on his lightsaber, and like that's the first time they encounter each other.
Right.
To me, it works so much better that way. Then Obi-Wan continue, like I think he runs away from Vader like 2 or 3 times during that, and it's just like, okay, we get it. You've used that already.
Yeah, and then you like in yours, like he immediately like pulls him into the fire from there, right? Yeah. Now, like with how you were editing this too, did you storyboard any of it out to kind of get a better like sequence of an idea of like how you wanted the events to go with that?
No, I really just threw all the episodes in one at a time and edited things down. And basically I had to like keep in mind what I had edited,
Right.
which I probably should have like written down some notes of like when I made a specific story choice that I knew was going to affect things later. But a lot of the times it was just like me going through it, and then I would watch the whole film over again, and I'd say, does this make sense? Also, my fiance is a huge Star Wars fan too. And she was, while we were watching the show together, we were both talking about the things that we didn't love about the show. And so a lot of the things that we talked about were the things that inspired me to edit certain things out. And she was the first one to see the finished Obi-Wan edit that I had. And she was the first one to see like my first draft edit that didn't even have the visual effects that I added in later. I would just like pause it for a second. I'd be like, okay, so this is supposed to be this. And she's like, I got it. You can keep playing it. And so, yeah, some of those early, I think I still have like the earliest drafts that I exported, and they are quite different. Not like huge differences, but like the first time around, I definitely truncated almost too much. And I remember my fiance being like, so you cut a lot of the like moments that were, for establishing shot purposes, and like, yes, maybe we don't need that sweeping shot of a desert, but maybe we do, maybe that gives us a better headspace into the energy we're about to go into with the scene. And so I was very grateful for those comments, because I ended up adding back in some of the slower moments. And yes, it added a little bit extra runtime, but it was worth it in the pacing and making sure that it all felt like a nice smooth journey through the movie.
And I liked the trailer that you put out for it a little bit more recently too, like kind of highlighting like a little bit of like what you added to it, like with like putting in the classic Star Wars like star wipes, because you got to have the star wipes if you're watching Star Wars. All the star wipes, and that adding the opening crawl. I thought that. Now with that, how long did it take you to come up with an idea of what exactly that opening crawl would say, and make it in your head, at least make it feel like that's what the opening crawl should say for this?
Yeah, honestly, that took me a long time. Like, I spent a good amount of time, not only like, completely like I like took all the opening crawls from every movie, and I like put them into a timeline, and I wrote out all the opening crawls so I could see about how long they were, and like what kind of terminology they used, and like what made it feel like an opening crawl from a Star Wars movie. Because you can tell if you're reading an opening crawl from someone that doesn't know how to write a Star Wars opening crawl, you're like, it takes you out of the movie. So I knew I had to like give it the attention that it deserved. But also, as I was going through the opening crawls to like create my own template so that it would match like the font and the look and the angle and everything, I noticed just how different each opening crawl is. You think in your mind, you're like, oh, I know that every single Star Wars opening crawl looks exactly the same and they move exactly the same speed, but actually every single one of them is very different. They'll be at a different angle slightly, or their font is a little bit smaller, or they're going at a little bit faster of a pace. So that freed up my creativity, where I could say, I'm going to make an opening crawl that feels Star Wars, but it doesn't need to be like so exact that it keeps me from actually accomplishing it, because every single opening crawl is different. I knew that like I just needed to get close enough. And so once I had the template where I could start like, inputting my own opening crawl, and it would look fairly similar, that's when I was like, oh yeah, now I actually have to write it. And I spent a long time just like looking through each opening crawl and like seeing what kinds of things they said and how they said it, and how it was written. And honestly, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the very first sentence, being a callback to Revenge of the Sith, Padme's line. So this is how liberty dies, with thunder's applause. And then my opening crawl starting with liberty is dead or something like that. Yeah. And so I was very proud of that. And I was also put that in there because there's only a few times where Padme is actually like mentioned and she's not even mentioned by name. And so I wanted to give her a little nod too, because she is so important to that world. But yeah, I wrote it. There's a few different drafts that I had, and I asked my fiance. I was like, "How does this sound? Does this sound okay?" Like, there were even a few times when I was like, I like input it into like Chat GPT, and I'd be like, "Make this sound better," and then like it would like throw out something else, and I'd be like, "It sounds worse." Like I just have to write it myself.
Yeah, Chat GPT can be very hit or miss.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that I probably spent like a good 3 or 4 days just on the opening crawl and making it as perfect as I could. Because again, like I said, this is the first thing that you're going to see when you're being introduced to my edit. And I want you to know that it's going to be quality and it's going to feel like a Star Wars movie.
Right.
Nice. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I mean, other people have done fan edits. Most famously, Topher Grace, I think, has edited all of them down into like one movie or something like that. Have you seen any of his? Or
I have not, and I don't know where to see it. I don't think he's
he's released it. I was just curious.
He doesn't really. He's just talked about it, which is I'm like, come on, just show it. Yeah,
I think because I think he made the prequels into one film,
one movie. Yeah,
and the only thing I know of like how it's composed basically was that it opens with the Duel of the Fates, like Maul, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan duel, and then cuts forward like 10 years, and you get a little bit from Attack of the Clones, but not a lot of it. So, and then like the majority of it is Revenge of the Sith stuff. So there's a lot of like time. Sense. I know there's a lot of time jumping in it. I think he did the same thing with the Hobbit trilogy too, where he edited that all down into one movie too.
I needed it.
Yeah, but in order to watch these, you have to be Topher Grace's one of his best friends. So.
Yeah, that's my next goal. I just got to be Topher Grace's best friend. I wonder if he's heard about my edit. I'm sure somebody's told him.
Yeah, he's. I mean, that's probably the one thing that mirrors Topher Grace and his portrayal of Eric Foreman is that they're probably very simpatico with like how much they like Star Wars, especially because that was one of the things too. Is like he said that like editing, he does that to de-stress.
Which I don't know how editing is de-stressing, but
I can see that because if you get like in the zone and then like you're just like very focused on it, that if you're focused on that one thing, then you don't have time to like worry about like whatever else might be going on.
That's true. Sometimes I even forget that I have to eat when I'm editing. I'll get so into it, and I'll be like, my fiance will come in and she'll be like, "Are you gonna eat dinner?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know if I ate lunch."
Nice.
Now, have you edited other? I mean, obviously you did the Boba Fett. I'm ignorant to other things you may have done. So, what have you done? Other fan edits of things, even non-Star Wars?
I have. I did an edit of the Jurassic World trailers when they were first coming out. And I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, obviously, so I was super excited that we were getting new Jurassic Park franchise movies. So when those were coming out, I like spliced together every single trailer that had come out, and I like used all the footage to like, you know, make a long full trailer. Did that. But Star Wars usually is what I have really focused on for fan editing. And actually my first Star Wars fan edit was re-editing the sequence where Han Solo dies in The Force Awakens, and it's on YouTube. You can see it. I had to add a bunch of like VHS effects to not have it taken down from YouTube, but basically in my version, I was always like really annoyed with how that whole sequence of events went, and having Chewbacca just sit there and watch his best friend get stabbed. So in my version, Kylo stabs Han Solo, and then immediately Chewbacca starts shooting at him, and Kylo like dodges the first shot, and so the shot whizzes past him. And then because he started shooting, then all the other, you know, troopers and stuff start shooting at them, and then a firefight ensues while the last bit of Kylo and Han Solo interacting. So you just see like, you know, a bunch of plasma bullets, you know, flying by and everything as they're kind of having their last moments. And then after that, then we have Chewbacca shoot Kylo in that moment where he gets hurt. And I just like, I really needed that to do that for peace of mind, because when my mom and I watched Force Awakens together, we both were just like, we're like, why would he just stand there? Like, it really
I never thought of
irked
that.
me. So I did that. Yeah, I think those are the only, other than Boba Fett and Obi-Wan and that part of Force Awakens, that's all that I have released. I have put the sequel trilogy into a timeline and was planning on making like just making the 3 movies into 2 movies. But I, after many frustrated weeks, couldn't figure it out. I would have to do reshoots to splice things together the way I wanted to, and still, I think the biggest things that I had gripes with the sequel trilogy are things that like I wouldn't even really be able to recreate, like having the original cast actually be all together in one scene.
Oh yeah.
Can't do that. I mean, I could maybe try to find some photo doubles and then maybe deep fake their faces, but I feel like it would feel really off. So yeah,
I almost feel like the only spot you could do that would be the Tatooine scene, and like try to put like the Han Solo ghost there, but then they're like, wait, why is Han a Force ghost?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know, and I've talked about doing Andor. Once Andor is finished, I wanted to make a trilogy of films, and the third film would be Rogue One.
Nice.
So at some point, you know, maybe I'll do that. Who knows what my life will be like when Andor is ending. Hopefully I'm directing Hollywood movies and I don't have time to do fan edits.
Right.
Or I do that to de-stress, like
there you go.
Topher Grace. And then also
you could be de-stressing from Topher Grace in your Hollywood movie.
Yeah, true. I've wanted to do The Mandalorian. With this third season having ended the way it did, I think it could be a really good trilogy of films, each season being one film. I don't have time for that right now. I've been doing my own personal projects lately that have nothing to do with Star Wars. And those things don't make me money. So I have to do them on my own time, and that takes a lot of time. And right now I am not in a good financial situation to be taking that kind of time on a fan edit. But yeah.
And so, like, with speaking of kind of like how you said you had to add all like the VHS kind of like artifacting to the Force Awakens scene, how long, like, because I remember like when you initially put up the edit of it, that I think within like a few days it had gotten taken down off of your site.
Yeah,
You
there
know,
was a few times that it got taken down based on the few different ways that I put it up. Firstly, I posted on TikTok a video of me like explaining what I did to make Obi-Wan into a movie and like some of the major changes that I did to it. And then I asked my TikTok audience, would anybody care to see this? I truly made it for myself and no one else. So when it went viral and lots of people wanted to see it, I was like, okay, like I got to figure out how to get it up because I wasn't expecting, TikToks are hit or miss most of the time. So I was really expecting to just like post and maybe like 100 people saw it and they're like, yeah, I'd like to watch it. And then maybe I can send out a Google Drive link to 100 people and I don't throttle Google's,
oh yeah,
download limit. But no, the video got 2 million views and I got written about in IGN, Variety, Entertainment Weekly. So a lot of people knew about it very quickly and I had to figure out how to share it because I got thousands of emails of people like demanding it. So I like put it up on Google first, but that just like didn't work because the link kept being throttled by thousands of people downloading it at once. And then I tried to put it on another site that is good for like downloading and stuff. But after about a week of that, and it was viewed over 400,000 times on that, and the people disabled that link and they almost deleted my account for that. And I was very sad because I use it professionally for like other things and collaboration tools. And then I put it on my personal website, which lasted for a while. And then my website was seeing all the traffic that was coming through on my page and was like, or like my web hosting service. They saw it and they were like, they never said anything about like anything copyright wise, and Disney and Lucasfilm never reached out to me officially. So I've never gotten a cease and desist or anything like that. But my web hosting series said, you can't be a streaming service, basically. So that is when I had to take it off of my website. And then I now have gone with just having it available for download. And that has seemed to gotten around the problem with streaming it. And a lot of people are like, why can't I just watch it somewhere? And I'm like, because it's always been taken down. This has been the only time where it's been stable, and it's because you can download it. And of course I encourage everybody who's downloading it that, I want you to have a Disney Plus subscription so that you're, supporting all the original artists because I believe that that's very important. I also figure that most of the people that are even interested in something like this probably have a Disney Plus subscription to watch Star Wars on the regular. So
and probably already watched like the original like 6 episode version.
Exactly. So, and honestly, I hope that you watch the show before you watch my edit, because I think you appreciate my edit more than. But I do know there's a significant amount of people that have watched it that have not watched the show at all. And I am very interested in what that feels like, because obviously I know the show and then I edited it down into a movie, so I will never have the experience of watching my movie like free of ideas of what the show would be, so I've been told, for people that have done that, I've been told that it is a seamless experience, and most people are like, I didn't even like feel like anything was missing. And I'm like, well, that's good, because I did my job. But I still think you should watch the show regardless, because either way, I think it's good to kind of be able to compare which ones you liked. And I think it's also kind of exciting. People are like, you know, whenever you hear that there's extra footage of something, you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I want to go see it. So it's almost like a kind of a reverse psychology thing where it's like
Right.
Yeah.
you watch the movie and then you're like, wait, there's so much more I can enjoy. Like, I'd love to watch that. So I hope
it's all-
that's kind of the reaction that it gets.
It's almost like your cut is the theatrical edition, and then the TV series is the extended edition.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think about the third Avatar movie coming out. James Cameron claims it's 9.5 hours long, and
Yeah.
he's going to release the theatrical version, and then they're going to release the 9-hour version on the
As like a Disney Plus series.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
do
I've
like the
heard that.
miniseries. So quick aside, real quick. We have one over on you with the cease and desist from Disney. So, like,
Oh, yeah?
Mike, our logo, I don't know, you can kind of see it up there in
Yeah.
the corner. So it says Star Wars in it, and it. So we originally had shirts up that had this TeePublic. Now, what was funny is that this colored version, like the red and yellow, or sorry, red and white one, got taken down. But I had it like the yellow, like the Star Wars yellow kind of font version of it up, and that one never got taken down. So
Really?
yeah, which I was like, it's exactly the same. It's just a different color. So I don't know, but so that's why the version of the shirt Mike has on, it says "Holdo Maneuver, a podcast."
Yeah, instead of
Oh,
instead
nice.
of in the shot.
But-
Whatever, doesn't matter.
But yeah,
That's
so
funny.
so like kind of coming from that too, as we kind of start to wind
Wrap up.
down, wrap up. With how many people have watched it, with it getting taken down sometimes, with like IGN writing something about it, Variety, has anything professionally from that come your way at all, or any kind of, and I guess if you can't talk about stuff, you can just say yes, and then you don't, and then we can just move on. But has anything kind of like, has that helped with your career
Yeah.
at all?
It's opened so many doors. It's been an amazing journey, and there have been people from the show that have reached out to me who like really appreciated what I did. So I have some new friends from this edit and people that have worked on the show, and a lot of Star Wars fans just get excited about Star Wars in general. So I've had thousands of emails of people who, you know, love Star Wars, but also do other things that are like, oh, we would, you know, love to get your take on this, or we'd love to, you know, hire you for this kind of thing. Like, so it's opened a lot of doors, and it's been great. And honestly, it changed my life. Like it really did. And the guy who's composing my short film right now, the music for my short film, he actually wrote me because of my Obi-Wan edit. He had watched my edit, and he watched my other short films on my website, and he was like, hey, if you're ever doing another short film, like, please let me know. I would love to work with you. And I looked at his work, and I was like really impressed with it. And so literally just a couple of days ago, I, you know, hit him up and asked him if he'd like to score my short film that I'm working on right now. And he was like, hell yeah, let's go for it. So
Nice.
If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have, you know, met that guy. And I also, the night that I got engaged to my fiance, it was also the very first time that I had been recognized in public for my Obi-Wan edit. So I was on this high of like, I had just gotten engaged, and then I was like walking out in public, and somebody's like, are you Kai Patterson? And I was like, yes. And they're like, you did the Obi-Wan edit. And I was like, I did. And they're like, wow, I'm such a huge fan. And I was like, that's crazy. I literally just got engaged an hour ago.
Congrats on that, by the way, too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just been an amazing journey, and the doors that have opened have been way more than any doors closing. I honestly don't know of any doors that have closed, and if they closed, then I probably didn't even know that they were an option for me at any point. I do think that there might not be a future for me at Lucasfilm. I know that they have hired that guy on YouTube, Shamuk, that he did a
Oh,
better
did the-
deep fake of Luke from The Mandalorian. I know that they hired him, so I guess there is a possibility that I could be hired for some kind of Star Wars project. I would never want it to be like, I would never want anyone working with me to feel like I did something disrespectful to their art. So I could totally understand if Disney was like, yeah, he's blacklisted from working on Lucasfilm or Star Wars projects. I understand that. And I accept that as being part of the consequences of my actions. But I still am very grateful that I did what I did, and that it has impacted so many people and been such an excitement for people. I know a lot of people that have like messaged me and just said like, hey, like I love Star Wars so much and I was able to share this with my family. We all did a movie night and we watched it together. And or me and my spouse, I can't get her to watch all the big Star Wars stuff, but
Right.
we could truncate this into a movie and I was able to share it with her. And like, so that kind of stuff really warms my heart when people reach out to me and let me know like what this movie meant to them and for their relationships. And so it's very exciting to be somebody that gets that kind of an opportunity where people are watching my work on a mass scale and enjoying it and sharing it with other people in their lives.
Nice. That's kind of what my wife, my son, and I did last night. Was we sat down and watched it all together. So
That's awesome.
My son's favorite Star Wars character is Obi-Wan. So
there you go. He's a very smart boy.
Yes. Yeah. So now this is going to be kind of like a little rapid fire kind of just favorite Star Wars kind of questions for you. So
Sure.
this doesn't even have to be just the Skywalker saga. It could be, like Rogue One or Solo or Caravan of Courage if you want it to be. What is your favorite of the Star Wars films?
Empire Strikes Back.
Solid
Classic.
choice.
Solid choice too. And then what if you could have a lightsaber, what color would it be? And it doesn't have to be any of the traditional colors. It can be like, if you want it to be chartreuse, it can be that.
Yeah. Anytime that I get like one of those like NeoPixel lightsabers, I always find myself turning it to green. I've always had a connection to a green lightsaber, so I would go green.
Nice. All right. And then this one, for your favorite Disney Plus Star Wars series, is it Obi-Wan or is it a different one?
Honestly, I'd say the first and second season of The Mandalorian are my favorite Disney Plus series. Obviously, Obi-Wan is like the series is the reason why I'm now on this podcast. So it's almost tied, but I think selfishly I like my movie version better than the series, so that's why I think Mandalorian would just be a little bit higher.
And then what was your? You may have answered this like within the context of another question, but what was your favorite part overall of what happened within the Kenobi series?
That's a good question. I'd say that we got to see a young Leia was really cool.
Same.
And I think that the actress that played her was so great, and really captured like the essence of Carrie Fisher's performance at such a young age, which is incredible. And I never expected to see Obi-Wan and Leia go on an adventure together, so I think that was really special. But I think top thing that I loved about the show was that last interaction with Vader and Kenobi. I just thought that the emotion in that was just great.
Love that as well. And then the last question is, If you liked coming on today, would you like to come back in the future to discuss your Boba Fett edit as well?
Oh, absolutely not. No, of course. I'd love to.
All right.
I'd
That's
love
an
to talk
acceptable
about.
answer.
Yeah. No, I haven't been on a podcast specifically for my my edit for Boba Fett, so it would be nice. I honestly probably have to watch it again because I haven't even seen it in a long time. I feel like I like know Kenobi so well because like
Mhm.
it was like such a huge passion project, and when I did it, it blew up obviously.
Right.
And then I wanted to do Boba Fett, really to give back to the fandom. And a lot of people asked about it, and I got to team up with another YouTuber who did their own version of a Kenobi movie, and both of us released ours at the same time. And so we could have been enemies, but instead we decided to work on something together. And so I did the first part of Boba Fett, and he did the second part of Boba Fett. And I also did the visual effects for the second part of Boba Fett, like changing the speeder bikes to not neon colors. But yeah, I would totally be down to rewatch those movies and talk about them because I put a lot of effort into that one because Boba Fett, like Obi-Wan was begging to be a movie, Boba Fett was not. So
No, it
turning
was
that
not.
into a movie was much more of a challenge than my Obi-Wan edit was.
Which is funny because at least with both these, like way back, they were initially conceived by Lucasfilm as beginning to be movies. So in the end, it became a movie. Just Lucasfilm didn't make it. So that'll close it out for episode 49. We hope everyone enjoyed our discussion during this episode, and then we'll be back next week with episode 50. So you can leave us a review on the podcast catcher of your choice if it allows you to do so. Helps us out when you do that. You can find our show on social media at, I guess it's called X now.
It's going to give it to you.
I'm just going to call it Twitter because that's what it's called. I'm not going to call it X. But yes. So we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all at HoldoPod. And then you can find me and Mike at those places too. You just basically by looking for our names. All the stuff will be in our show notes. And then where can they find you online, Kai?
Yeah, so on basically every social media, I'm at Kai Patterson Films, except for on Twitter or X, I am at Kai Patterson Cut because films wouldn't fit. And then you can also see my films at KaiPattersonFilms.com, where you can find the way to download the movie Boba Fett Obi-Wan. And also, I would really encourage you to watch my other short films on my website as well, because I do more than just Star Wars, and I would love for people to check that stuff out as well. Thank you.
And then, all of the info will be in the show notes. I'll also have, there's usually like those little like bumper things at the end of these videos. I'll make sure that there's a thing for your channel there at the end too. And then Mike's favorite part of the episode. As always, we are grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Oh dear, thank the maker.
Goodbye.
Goodbye there.
Goodbye.